We have got to talk about the Rudy Giuliani court appearances. I have notes from Friday and today. He is fighting with his lawyers. They want out of the case. There's claims of contempt. His other cases are being brought up. I think between civil and criminal, it's 6 other cases. He wants to sue Joe Biden, and they keep trying to use his age as a protection against contempt. It is absolutely wild, and we are going to get into that. But first, a little bit of housekeeping real quick. You might have noticed my video covering Marjorie Taylor Greene spreading a conspiracy about the U.S. government and the Chinese government is now gone. The reason that is gone is because YouTube marked it that I was promoting a violent organization in my video criticizing Marjorie Taylor Greene for spreading unfounded conspiracy theories. And then the appeal for that was immediately rejected. So you got to love our AI overlords. And yes, of course, I lose a little money because it had a decent amount of views, but it's more worrying that obviously I have to imagine these things are not being viewed by a person, or if they aren't actually looking at any context of the video whatsoever, because it is made very clear in the beginning what the video is for. But the appeal was rejected. You will not see that video again. It's gone. Poof. Into the ether. Maybe from now on, when I cover things like that, I'll have to put a disclaimer on the actual video in words constantly, just so it is very clear to YouTube reviewers. That might be what I have to do going forward. Now, with that being said, let's get into Rudy Giuliani, and I need to begin by explaining this right here. Interrogatory number 4 and 8. They are going to be mentioned so many times, I'm going to leave this up in the background permanently so you can see what they are. So number 4 is identify any financial, medical, or legal professional or firm whom you have consulted during the period of January 1st, 2020 through present, and identify all email addresses, messaging accounts, and phone numbers that you have used during the period of January 1st, 2023 through the present. Rudy did not respond by the deadline and then didn't do these things. That is the core of what we're talking about today, along with some other things, but we'll get into that. This is all part of a contempt for the $146 million defamation case he is liable in. Now, let me find here exactly where I started. I have some backstory I wrote out. If you haven't watched the previous video on Rudy Giuliani, he is having issues getting a lawyer willing to represent him at all in some of his cases. He's actually blaming the judge for it. Rudy hasn't had a good time in court and has even had to go pro se at times. In this case, for now, he has a lawyer. He is accused of not only not turning over required discovery, they also say that while he turned over physically his Mercedes-Benz and New York condo, he has not turned over the title or deed to them. They also claim he's lying when it comes to his Florida property being a primary residence and want that turned over as well. There is evidence for this, which includes Rudy Giuliani's live streams, which proves he does not live in Florida. They claim he is hiding a framed DiMaggio jersey, cash in a known bank account, watches, costume jewelry, and possibly more. Now, before we get into this, most of what I have here was learned from Inner City Press because this was not live streamed. They had to have someone in the room, and they did updates. I looked at some other content as well to kind of make sure I got as much as I could, but they were the main source because you can only get it from them if they're the only ones reporting on it, right? Rudy's lawyer says he will argue that his client complied with discovery. His lawyer started talking about him being an 80-year-old man and there being a whirlwind of discovery, but the judge cuts him off. There is the plaintiff's lawyer talking about entering Rudy's apartment. He didn't see the DiMaggio shirt, but he also wasn't allowed to touch anything, look at anything. Rudy's lawyer tries to argue that a co-op isn't a real property. The judge stops him. The plaintiff's lawyer says a framed jersey with a number 5 on it, likely Joe DiMaggio. Rudy's lawyer asked the plaintiff's lawyer if they told Rudy how to transfer the co-op. The judge says it was not the plaintiff's lawyer's responsibility, and this has already been ruled on. It was Rudy's responsibility. So that's a lot there real quick, but basically they just went down to like, what is missing? What are you claiming is missing? And then Rudy's lawyer is already trying a defense of, well, you didn't tell him how to give it to you, which isn't their job. restroom break. A lot of those happen. Plaintiff's other lawyer asked about Rudy's bankruptcy. Rudy's lawyer asked where it is. Judge says it was allowed as a court record. Rudy's lawyer says he doesn't have a copy, just says it isn't a basis for objection. He could have. The judge says it wasn't a basis for an objection, and he could have just brought it. It is on his screen to see now. They want to put 3 photos into evidence. Giuliani's lawyer asked about the photos, taking a picture of a sticky note. The judge says that's off limits, and they go on a break. A lot of breaks on Friday. It gets better on Monday. I'm going to put it that way. Rudy will be taking the stand. Giuliani laughs that he isn't sure if he's familiar with his own declarations. Rudy says it is in discussion if one of his lawyers, Caruso, will represent him on appeal. It's in discussion if one of his lawyers, Caruso, will represent him on appeal. Basically, I believe, I'm trying to remember right, that's the lawyer he's fighting with. That's the lawyer that wants out because there's differences that can't be handled, and I think it involves this discovery. Rudy has known Caruso for 50 years and only learned about him wanting to withdraw from newspapers. The judge says that may raise ethical concerns. Caruso is there, tries to raise objection, and the judge says no speaking objections. So basically at this point, Rudy is trying to throw his current lawyer under the bus. How very Sarah Boone of him. Rudy was denied a bottle of water. Rudy Giuliani says what his lawyer said about discovery is misleading. He's saying Caruso lied about discovery, about what was going on with it, that he was the one being misleading. Rudy says he doesn't recall what devices he ID'd for this case, says he has so many cases he can't rule it out. Same answer to his email accounts. He doesn't know. There's so many crimes, I guess. Giuliani says his lawyer wasn't returning his calls and wanted him removed from the case. So, Giuliani's going, the lawyer that wants off the case wasn't taking my calls and I wanted him off the case. Sarah Boone! I mean, it sounds like Sarah Boone, right? We've heard this exact argument. Rudy says he doesn't understand that when he has to turn over communications, that includes emails. Yes, you heard that right. Rudy Giuliani didn't think communications include emails. He says he viewed emails more like documents. Rudy was told to provide travel records, but his assistants keep it on notes and then throw them away, so he doesn't have it. Rudy then says he thought some of what was requested was inappropriate, and the judge told him he doesn't get to determine that. Remember, if it was inappropriate, he had a deadline, and he didn't do it. Rudy didn't like that he had to prove information on lawyers, every lawyer, for the guy who's representing the president. This statement got struck. Had another break. And we're back. Rudy is asked if he produced no emails, and he says, whatever it shows, it shows. Plaintiff's lawyer moves to admit an American Express statement. Rudy's lawyer, objection, overruled. It is a $99 charge for pizza. Judge says that's one pricey pizza. Plaintiff's lawyer asked about a Royal Petroleum gas station. Rudy says he doesn't know about it. A hotel stay in New Hampshire. Rudy's lawyer says objection based on relevance. Overruled. Plaintiff's lawyer puts up a credit union application where Rudy clicked yes, he lives or works in New Hampshire. Rudy says he did, and the document is taken down because it actually had private information that wasn't supposed to be up, like phone numbers and addresses. We never saw that, of course, because it wasn't a live stream trial. Rudy said he had a rental for a couple months. Rudy is shown the turnover order. He says he sees a signed Reggie Jackson picture and the Joe DiMaggio jersey listed. Rudy is asked why he didn't disclose his grandfather's watch in the bankruptcy, so he's keeping things secret. Rudy says he put it in a safe place and starts to say that if they could assure him they would keep it in a safe place, but it's cut off with the question, do you have it with you today? He says no, it means something to him. Rudy lives in a doorman building and he says he was vacating and they told him to take everything. They show a photo of Rudy in the car involved in this case. Rudy says he used it to go vote. The judge wants the response tweets on the image redacted. So I've seen people tweet out Rudy showing up in the car he was supposed to turn over, and I'm assuming the replies that they showed in court that were attached to this were not nice. It was a full screen grab. Rudy was asked if he understands it can take 4 weeks to get a car title in Florida, and he says he didn't. He requested it in late November and then had someone else do it for him. Judge asked, why didn't Rudy do it personally? And he said he had other things to do and uses people to do things for him. Rudy is asked if he has a box in Florida with important documents. He says he does. Judge asks when he accessed it, and Rudy says 2 weeks. But the plaintiff's lawyer points out that Rudy says he hasn't had access to that box in 6 months. Rudy is asked if the proprietary lease is, it might be property, it says proprietary in his notes, so I'm going to say that, is in the box. It might be the proprietary might be the right word. Rudy says he thought they were in talks about the Florida condo. Judge asks if he has a proprietary lease for the condo, and Rudy says no. Rudy says, are you saying I should have gone to Citibank and gotten cash and handed it to you? I gave you the destination or designation. My notes are bad here. There was talk about the Citibank money that Rudy might have been hiding. Judge asks when he made a request to Citi, and Rudy says he remembers doing it but doesn't know when. Plaintiff's lawyer says Rudy claims there is no Reggie. The plaintiff's lawyer says that Rudy claims there is no Reggie Jackson picture and instead is Derek Jeter. Rudy says he went through a divorce and his ex-wife kept some things, so now he's blaming his ex-wife. I have had Sarah Boone on the brain. I think of her blaming Brian for stuff. Rudy says he gave away a lot of his mayor stuff. He gave it to people who digitized it. He gets confused, says he isn't hiding it. Rudy says he last saw the apartment on September 11th. Rudy says he isn't aware of the Joe DiMaggio picture moved to the Skyline warehouse. Rudy is asked about his friend saying the DiMaggio jersey is in Palm Beach. So Rudy's own friend is saying it's in Palm Beach. Rudy says it was never there, it was always on the wall, and he slept on the couch. His friend is wrong, and he can find 10 people who will also say his friend is wrong. Rudy's lawyer says that Rudy has health issues and asks for a continuance to be remote from Palm Beach. Redirect will probably be about 90 minutes. Judge says tomorrow is Saturday, so we're not doing it then. The homestead issue is more time sensitive since we have trial, so it will be finished remotely. So it's going to be fully remote. Judge says Mr. Giuliani can talk with his lawyer about turning over things like the Joe DiMaggio jersey and his grandfather's watch. Mr. Giuliani, you are in violations of this court's order on that. Plaintiff's lawyer says they prefer to get the items. Now, what happened is the judge actually issued another order. Due to public interest, it will be an in-court appearance for everyone but Rudy. All right, so originally this was all going to be remote, but due to public interest, now it's in person. Rudy will be remote. Rudy changed his background to an American flag near the start, and the judge had to tell him to change it, so he made it black. Rudy's lawyer, Cameretta, began by asking Rudy about his relationship to Kenneth Caruso, which is Rudy's lawyer, who wants off the case, and Rudy says was lying about discovery. Plaintiff's lawyer objects. Sustained. Rudy says he called Caruso 2 to 3 times a day. Dr. Maria would respond for him. Cameretta says those were not sent to you directly. Plaintiff's lawyer objects. Leading. Sustained. Cameretta has Rudy confirm his DocuSign signature, asked if Rudy can see it. Can see interrogatory 4 on the screen. Rudy says his screen is small, but we provided it. Rudy says, and I want to quote here, I had originally objected to this, but you convinced me. To his lawyer, he says, I objected, but you convinced me. The judge says, either going to strike that or rule that you've waived your privilege. Yeah, it's not a good thing to, say that, and Cameretta strikes it on his own. Rudy's lawyer asked about interrogatory 8. Judge says if he is just authenticating, it's done. So they move on. Like, authenticating's over. Cameretta asks Rudy if he provided these to plaintiffs. Rudy says, yes, I worked with you in answering. So he's kind of putting it on the new lawyer. That, I worked with you. If there's an issue, I worked with you, right? Cameretta is asking if it's in the same condition. The plaintiff's lawyer objects lack of foundation in personal knowledge. The judge says sustained also on 401 grounds, which I believe is relevance. Rudy is asked if he has made any efforts to comply with court orders. He said best of his ability. Cameretta asked Rudy to explain if he violated any court orders. Objection. Overruled, but of limited weight since self-serving statements. So basically, you can answer, but it's obviously going to be very self-serving, so how much it matters is low. Rudy says some interrogatories were traps, so he was wary of them. Cameretta asked Rudy if he told anyone to ignore court orders. Objection. Judge says that if this is allowed, then an inquiry into communications with his lawyers is allowed. It's withdrawn. Rudy says he had a discussion about documents from his previous lives. When he was mayor and so on. He refers to his previous life. Rudy is asked how many cases he is a defendant in. He says 2 criminal cases, Arizona, Georgia, a RICO case, and 2 litigations with Dominion, and litigation with Smartmatic, a specific Dominion employee, and Trump might also be in that one, also a case with Hunter Biden. The judge asks how many cases. Rudy starts talking about producing documents, and the judge says that's not what was asked. Rudy says he was dismissed in a case in D.C. with Trump and his son. There's another case in New York by a woman who claims she worked for him, but says it's the 3rd time she's done such a case and she's known for it. Rudy says he's involved in an investigation of a criminal or regulatory nature. This case is an appeal in Arizona and Smartmatic. Rudy says he brought his own case in New Hampshire against Joe Biden. He sued Joe Biden for saying that Rudy produced the Hunter Biden hard drive as an agent of Russia, which Rudy says he's not. And he's waiting for Joe Biden to leave office, also in the First Department and in D.C. Rudy's lawyer asks how has this impacted him? Objection. Judge makes the lawyer restate it to the what, when, how, why. Rudy says it's hard to function. He ran out of money. He doesn't have staff like Wilkie Farr. Wilkie Farr is one of the plaintiff's lawyers. Wilkie Farr moves for a strike and it's granted. Rudy's lawyer asks about document number 7. Rudy says that's Mickey Mantle's number. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't remember. These pictures here at the end, I could look at them. A lot of long pauses, and the judge asks if they can move on. Rudy is asked why he didn't comply by his own lawyer. Rudy says he doesn't trust the plaintiffs. For example, asking for all lawyers I spoke to, I have a principled objection. Some documents I can find using my prior experience, we can supply them. Rudy is asked when did he start relying on others to answer things. He talks about being an attorney, mayor, etc. He relied on staff. Rudy found a pocket watch he has to turn over and physically holds it up and is told he doesn't have to do that. Doesn't hold it up. I believe he probably has to turn it over. Plaintiff's lawyer Marie Ann, I'm going to butcher this, Houghton Larson is up. Rudy says his lawyer Caruso stopped answering him in October. Larson asks if he sees the request, and he says yes. Rudy says he doesn't know how to access his Gmail account. Rudy says he deleted everything in his Proton Mail account except for his emails about Trump cases. Rudy says he picked Proton Mail because the FBI seized his other account, and he found out they were surveilling his iCloud account after he represented Donald Trump. So he's making claims about the FBI targeting him for representing Trump. Rudy says he doesn't know if he preserved. He said he doesn't know. He set it up quickly after the FBI raid on April 2022. Rudy says he doesn't use a computer other than to stream his show. He uses an iPhone and iPad. Rudy says he doesn't use Instant Messenger on Twitter. He says he gets texts. He texts 2 to 15 times a day. He doesn't know if he gets texts on his iPad. Ted Goodman, Rudy's son, Rudy's son's wife all have access to these messages, I guess, the iPad. I'm assuming that's what they're talking about here. Rudy says he has True Social and receives messages through it. Larson then says, so your answer on messaging was untrue? And Rudy says, I thought they meant only private messages. People reply publicly when he promotes the show on True Social. Larson wants to show the emails. Rudy's lawyer objects, and the judge overrules because Rudy gave a wide scope of testimony. Rudy says he may have produced the email shown. He's then shown another email about the use of credit cards. Rudy says he was going to cover the eclipse in New Hampshire for his show, which he did. This email was not produced to the plaintiff, so they've got him not producing emails. Rudy is asked who is in the room with him now. His assistant, Ted Goodman, his assistant on the show, Vanessa, who set this up, and someone else who came and delivered something but left. Goodman works for Rudy full-time. Rudy says Dr. Ryan could have searched his Proton mail if he let her. Mr. Medrano works for Standard, a company Rudy mostly owns, and there's a redirect. Rudy says he considers himself so-so with technology. Rudy is asked if he thought requests covered social media. He says he uses iPhones, which made it convenient for the FBI to seize when he represented Donald Trump. No more questions, and we go on break. Plaintiff's lawyer, Aaron Nathan, says the Supreme Court upheld discovery sanctions even where a litigant would comply in the future, which I wouldn't say here. We've heard admissions Mr. Giuliani provided only the last names of doctors. The judge says you're asking him to draw inference of the question of the Homestead case that none of the doctors were in the Florida area. Plaintiff lawyer says you can do that due to his refusal to provide discovery. Rule 37 allows it. Plaintiff's lawyer says Rudy, as far as interrogatory number 8 goes, Rudy Giuliani admitted to accounts he didn't tell them about. He didn't produce his email. That is enough for relief. Caruso's declaration is just icing on the cake, which is the lawyer that wants out, that Rudy's not doing discovery right, all that stuff. And they could be granted relief without it. So basically, the plaintiffs are saying, we have everything. We need relief. Camarada says there have been substantial compliance. Rudy is 80 years old, 6 depositions, and he starts listing them. The judge asks, was Rudy present for that? No, Rudy is involved with 6 criminal and civil cases. Camarada says since his office took over, there has been compliance, and the judge says that is what's being disputed. Camarada says the plaintiff's counsel is operating pro bono on this. There is no harm. So, if I'm understanding that argument right, they're saying that since the plaintiff's counsel isn't being paid, the plaintiffs aren't paying extra money because of the delay, therefore they're not harmed by a delay. Camarada says adverse inference is a death penalty. It would decide the case. The case should be decided on merits and testimony. Rudy substantially complied. The Homestead case isn't complicated, and we did our best. Camarada says Rudy is very busy, but has been compliant. He does respect the court. Camarada disagrees with the declaration of Kenneth Caruso, that's Rudy's lawyer, that wants out, that the attorney-client relationship broke down. Judge says it doesn't take willfulness to find contempt. Camarada says the plaintiffs are trying to avoid trial and end the case today. People travel to doctors in New York from Alaska and certainly Florida. So the argument is that Rudy is trying to get Homestead in Florida, but he doesn't live there. And they're arguing that his travel plans and his doctor's visits prove he's not in Florida. And his show proves he's not in Florida. So now they're arguing, well, he could have traveled to New York to do all those things from Florida. Judge says your timing is up. Camarada says this weekend Rudy took effort to get more documents, deny the sanctions. The judge asks if the Mercedes title has been turned over. Camarada says Judith Giuliani is on that. Camarada says it isn't non-compliance, it's dealing with an administrative agency. No one here wants to deal with the DMV, and the judge says it's not difficult. Plaintiff's lawyer said we wanted a trial. Adverse inferences are appropriate. This comes down to the principle that a party cannot benefit from not complying with court orders. Specific deterrence may be a lost cause with this defendant, but general deterrence is important. Basically, if I'm understanding it right, he's saying Rudy's not going to learn a lesson about defying court orders, but if he is punished, other people might. Judge says rulings are coming soon, and he's back with rulings. Now, I want to say that these were taken directly as quotes from Inner City Press's coverage for these actual mentions by the judge, because I wanted to be as close as I could to the actual words spoken, because this is the most important part. Plaintiffs have moved for sanctions against defendant. Motion is granted. The court found the defendant's objections were meritless. He was ordered to answer by December 20th. Defendant violated the order. The court directed the defendant to answer why the plaintiff's motion should not be granted. Under Rule 37, the court has this power, citing Chevron v. Donziger. As Judge Gorsuch wrote, discovery is not a shell game. The court takes judicial notice that the defendant was until recently a barred attorney and has committed discovery violations in the past. He has lost on both prosecutorial and substantive questions. It was not even close. He violated the court's order. Defendant could have asked for a confidentiality order, but he didn't. He has offered a series of shifting, meritless objections. The court concludes that the defendant has been attempting to run the clock. The objections were pretextual. Plaintiffs have shown prejudice. The court set a January 16th trial date, 10 days from today. There is not enough time for the plaintiffs to seek the deposition of defendants' advisors, to investigate where they were located. The defendant did respond on December 31st. That is relevant, having considered the range of sanctions. Fees are not appropriate, but also wider sanctions are not necessary. A narrower adverse inference is appropriate here, as to the interrogatories 4 and 8. The inference is that the location and any changing of advisors would not support the defendant's homestead argument. Even without these sanctions, the trier of fact could draw a permissive adverse inference. The court also finds Mr. Giuliani in contempt. There was no substantial compliance. He has not produced a single email responsive to the RFPs. He had the emails going to his travel, but he failed to produce them. On the contempt sanctions, the court takes under advisement and will give it more serious thought. I am reserving judgment. Okay, that is the order of the court. Now, plaintiff's lawyer says they don't believe Judith Nathan intends to assert rights to the apartment. As with the car, we have obtained some tax returns that are not protected. The judge says his rules say to file them under seal with the defendant and then argue for it. Schedule being considered, along with the contempt motion, adjourned. So, we don't have a scheduled date. We do know there's going to be adverse inferences. What those are, we don't know. We do know Rudy was found in contempt. What will the punishment be for that? Again, we don't know, but that is the update. Rudy lost in court today. Not as much as the plaintiffs wish. The plaintiffs, obviously, as Rudy's lawyer was trying to say, we're trying to just shut down the entire case today because Rudy didn't turn over evidence. But that didn't happen, and it's going to have to continue, and we're going to have to get more. But Rudy 100% lost. I have a bunch of assistants, and I didn't know I had to turn over this, and I'm 80, and I don't know technology. That doesn't work when you literally run a web show, right? Like, he was a barred lawyer. Rudy, in the past, Rudy knows how these things work. He's very obviously purposefully not doing them. In my opinion, it's very, very clear. So I wanted to cover it because I wrote a whole bunch of notes Friday, and it got really interesting to me today. And I honestly wanted to make something since the Marjorie Taylor Greene video went down, which I think was completely inappropriate. But, I thought I should put something up. I haven't started Lori Daybell stuff yet. The heat in this place hasn't been fixed, but I have a temp fix, which is literally I have a space heater in the room I'm in right now, and it's a lot more cozy. I have to figure out how to dial that in. And I've been sick. I'm still kind of sick. I've been sick now for 3 or 4 days. I'm feeling a little better today, but I felt better on like day 2, and then I got worse. So we'll see how that goes. I'm going to try to hydrate. I'm going to try to limit my caffeine intake so I, stay hydrated, and I might be sleeping more. Normally when I'm a little bit tired, relaxing, I was planning to do like the Lori Daybell stuff and chill and take notes, but how I've been feeling, I think I'd be better off not pushing myself right now just for my own health. So that's just an update of why I haven't done that yet. I really do plan to. It's just finding the time where the stars align. Basically, I feel good. I have everything in front of me. I have time. That's a big one, time. But yeah, so if you're wondering about that video being removed, what are like the long-term effects on the channel? Technically none. Kind of. So YouTube's a little weird. Like normally you would get a strike. Like your channel would get a strike for that type of content, and I didn't, which makes me believe that probably a one-of warning. So if they falsely claim the same thing again in the future for future content, then it would be a strike, which would mean like I couldn't do it for like a week. And of course, even if you don't get a strike, if the AI messes up on your algorithm, you could. I mean, let me put it this way. I'll put it this way. A few years ago, I got demonetized for 6 months. Could make no money on YouTube, and they held all the money I had already made due to an error on their part. I had a bunch of videos flagged falsely. I was able to get every single one appealed, right? All of it got fixed. And then, while I was waiting for those appeals, my monetization was removed because of all the strikes. And then, after they all got appealed, my monetization was not brought back because I was told I had to wait 6 months because I lost it because of the strikes that didn't exist. So, yeah, it feels like we're getting back into that. That was also, funny enough, I believe still during the Trump presidency. So, and again, that was covering things and criticizing things that were obviously not true. But again, those didn't get those appeals were successful, but it didn't matter, right? It didn't matter that I didn't actually do anything wrong because the system in another part, they don't like interact correctly and it messed it up. So just putting it out there. If I get demonetized, if that happens again, I'll let you all know. It probably won't happen. I haven't really. Other people got affected by it around the same time, and I haven't heard that hitting again. If something like that were to occur again, I will mention it. And if you wanted to support me, my Buy Me a Coffee link, which is on a bunch of my videos, like the Sarah Boone videos, that would still work. That would be the only YouTube income I would get from YouTube at that point until the monetization was restored. But again, that's a bridge we could possibly cross in the future, especially. A lot of these AI algorithms are just bad. They're really bad, and companies are trying to push them out quickly, and they're cutting employees when they do it. And then because they've cut employees, they have less employees to try to fix the AI. And they're like, well, what if you fix the AI using this AI tool? And a lot of companies are getting way ahead of themselves and completely messing up. So anything is possible. Just be very transparent there. That could be a mess with AI stuff, especially if Google is screwing it up. But I think, as I said earlier, anything where I think there's even a question, I'm going to have to put like a visible disclaimer on the screen at all times in case like there is a human reviewer and they only review a small snippet instead of the actual, context of the video. I guess. I thought my explanation of what the video was and everything was good, but the problem is the way that video was taken down, I don't believe I could watch it to then like timestamp or like list off exactly when, like, multiple times throughout I said things that like were, going against this narrative or whatever by the elected official. And because I couldn't do that, maybe that made it harder. I don't know. I should probably keep a copy of all my videos, but that's expensive, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm not super worried about it, to be honest. But it's gonna make me mad for about 24 to 48 hours. But I'm gonna get off here. And finished the video, covered everything I wanted to cover. Channel update added at the end. I haven't seen anything else with Sarah Boone. The only thing with Sarah Boone is she has a new mugshot. I don't think a new mugshot is worthy of a video, even though I know people would tune in. I don't think it's worthy of a video, but thank you all for watching. Everyone that subs, watches, uses the Buy Me a Coffee, anything like that. And I'll see you in the next video.